Okay, John Marks here, Montgomery County Tea Party. We are here to interview Mr. Charlie Miller, and he is running for Texas State Senate District 4. With me is Larry Rogers, Luis Pedraza, Lana Horde, Bob Bagley, and Kenneth Ernest. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
You bet. Thanks for coming in. And as we discussed, feel free to take up to 5 minutes on your opening, and then we'll go around the table for Q&A, and then a up to 5 minute closing. So
Okay.
the floor is yours, sir.
Awesome. Well, my name is Charlie Miller, as you said, and I'm happy to be here with you guys today. Thank you very much for having me.
Sir.
Um, I am a normal, everyday small business owner and veteran, just a normal guy that got that. I was talking to a friend one morning, and I got that Holy Spirit gut punch. Hey, you need to be the one to go do something. And I'd stood before my peers twice this year and asked, who is going to be to step up to help? Who's going to make a change? And in October of this year, I think it was October the 8th, I went to a meeting in Montgomery County, and I was speaking in a room full of other, we own a tow company, a tow service, and I was speaking to other tow company owners, and I asked them, everybody was complaining and griping. That's what happens when you get a like-minded group of individuals in a room. That's what often happens, right? And everybody had something to say. So I waited till everybody talked a long time. About halfway through the meeting, I asked, I said, who in this room, everybody's unhappy with the current situation that's going on. Who in this room is going to be the one to step up and to put their neck out there and to say, I will be the face of change. I will be the one that puts my neck on the line and do something. Of course, there's crickets in the room, and nobody wants to be that person. So we finished our meeting and I left, and I'm sure everybody grumbled and complained all the way to the car and all the way home because that's just been the par for course for these meetings here lately. And I was the next morning I was on the phone with a friend of mine, a lawyer friend of mine, very good guy, and we were discussing some of the things that were going on that we were facing with in our industry locally and at a state level. And while we were talking, I got that gut punch and I said, oh, and I recognized it instantly. I have been called to go do things before. And I asked him, I said, man, I said, you got a few extra minutes to talk. I said, I think I need to run for Senate. And he said, and he and I are both kind of old school movie buffs a little bit. And he made a movie reference. He said, "You serious, Clark?" From Christmas Vacation. And that's just him. He's such a down to earth cool guy. And I said, yeah, I think so. And I texted my wife, and everything's always confirmed through your spouse. And I texted her, and I said, hey, I think that I need to do this. And she said, if that's what we need to do, then that's what we're going to do. And for me, I am so exhausted about seeing rules and laws that are passed that don't make sense to the normal everyday person. If things aren't simple to understand, easy to read, and easy to follow when it gets passed or put on a ballot, the normal everyday person doesn't know what they're voting for. They don't know what they're looking at or what's being projected to them or how to understand what laws and rules they are to follow. If it doesn't make sense to the normal everyday person, how are we supposed to, as a society, make things better? How are we supposed to follow the rules? How are we supposed to obey, and do things the right way? So, like I said, I'm just a normal, everyday guy that is just tired of seeing things just be the status quo, just be the normal, everyday. This politician said, hey, you go vote for this one because we think this is who we want to work with. That's just not okay to me. I'm not on board with that. I think that it's the people that have the choice. It should be the people's voice that speaks up on election day. I think that representatives should be directly responsible and directly accountable to those that send them there, because we are to have a government of the people, by the people, for the people, not a government of the government, by the government, for the government.
Still got 25 seconds. You good?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, thank you for that opening. Appreciate it. So you mentioned it was a meeting of tow um, company owners complaining
Yeah.
about, I don't know, one thing in general or a lot of stuff in general. What were they
Um,
complaining
it
about that drove you
it
to make
was
that decision, and how does that tie into the position you're running for?
it has been a long term struggle on policy. So not just policy, but definitions. So directly relating to the tow industry, we have faced um, definitions that don't fit for our equipment, for the the some of the equipment we have to purchase to be able to participate, to work, be licensed in the state of Texas. None of this stuff is cheap anymore. I mean, a regular pickup truck isn't cheap, and the tow truck is twice as bad. You got to buy the front half and the back half. And for us to be able to work and to understand how to follow and obey the rules properly, the rules on the local level are are not very good, and the state laws that help guide those local rules and laws are just as bad. They're not clear, and they're not precise, and they're not easy to understand, and they're not easy to follow. And it has a trickle down effect to the local rules and laws. So if a state definitions and state rules aren't precise and able to be understood and followed easily, then it muddies the waters below that, right? So it trickles down to the counties, it trickles down to the cities that regulate our industry, and so that's the same across all industries that are regulated in the state of Texas. If the state rules aren't easy to read, easy to understand, and easy to follow, it has a trickle down effect and has negative effects by the time it gets to the people that are running the small businesses, the heartbeat of our economy across the entire country. If those businesses look up at all these rules that they have to follow from the local level to the state level to a federal level, if they don't make any sense and they have a hard time, regardless of the industry, it's impossible for them to be streamlined, efficient, and to understand and to obey properly the way that's supposed to work.
Okay, Luis?
So, election integrity
Hmm.
wise, right now the state legislators do pass laws. There's a lot of laws on the books, but generally they don't have a lot of teeth in them. They don't have, you can. So what if you disobey the law? Okay, you might get a civil fine, maybe if the district attorney decides to
If
then. So we need more teeth in laws. The second thing is SOS, Secretary of State. In the counties, we run our own elections. The county
Mhm.
does, but the SOS gives guidance, and generally speaking, they don't really follow the what's on the books and the laws a lot of times. So those are two main big issues. So what would you do to help with that? Given that election integrity is probably the most important thing we can do, or a government can do, one of the most important things. Well, security and then ensuring your vote really is good.
right. So I will start with that part of it first about the election integrity. If our elections are not secured and upfront, honest, and transparent, if we can't make sure that our votes matter and our votes were counted in a way that um, is transparent, and the people that are taking care of that part of the business held accountable for their actions, then where are we really at with elections? That is, they have to be safe, they have to be secure, and that has to be done properly. Now, I would like to see, and it's the same thing with our industry from a state level to down to a local level. If the state level stuff business isn't handled properly, it has a trickle down effect and muddies the waters to everything below it at the county level. If elections aren't handled properly at a state level, say it starts at a federal level, if they aren't handled there properly and it goes to a state level, they're not handled properly. What is it like by the time it gets to us when we go to cast our vote? It is a hot mess, and we're the ones left stuck dealing with all of that when it comes about. I think that the people that are in charge at a state level should be held accountable to follow the rules that we have. If we don't like those rules, or those rules don't make sense, or we can't understand them or follow them, then it's the job of the lawmakers to go in, the representatives, the elected officials above them, to go in and to make those changes accordingly so that we can read, understand, follow, and enforce those rules and laws. That's their job. If those things can't happen and don't make sense. And what was the other part of the question?
Well, that's good right there. But before I lose this thought, so there's a whole bureaucracy of people in Austin, different places that we hired them from LBJ business schools or very liberal schools. I shouldn't say that, but we hired people, or not. The state of Texas has hired a lot of people that are very liberal.
Yes.
There's a swampiness in that. The issue, part of that is that they will follow what they want to, and there's really not a lot you can do with unelected bureaucrats. So let's just finish that piece of it. So what how could you help with that piece of it?
So first, this has been my fight for 5 years with our tow rotation here locally. Especially under some of the previous administrations, we have a fantastic sheriff now. That hadn't always been the case, in my opinion. There was things that we were ruled over with a very heavy hand, and not the rules weren't enforced equally and fairly for everybody. If the rules aren't the same for every single person, I don't care who you are, where you're from, what you look like, or how much money you have, or what position you have in government and life and society. I don't care. We don't have royalty. The rules apply to everyone the same. And those rules should be enforced 100% the same to everybody across the board. No ifs, ands, or buts.
All right.
Thank you.
I think the engineering business schools at UT are okay. It's the rest that are
Well, I'm not,
what are you smoking?
nothing.
They're good.
Engineering, yeah. Engineering and business,
are
yeah.
Now, I'm not saying anybody's bad. I'm
Most of
just saying
them take economics anyway, so they understand.
there's a liberal piece in Austin. Let's face it. Austin is a liberal town.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that.
Well, yeah,
All our cities are
engineering
blue.
businesses are small compared to
Anyway.
us.
Yeah, I went
Go ahead.
to Austin. I've never spent a lot of time in Austin personally.
That's good.
And I went to file at the Republican Party in person on November the 8th, the day that it opened.
Mhm.
When I went to file, my wife and I were walking through town. I thought, wow, this is going to take some getting used to.
Yeah.
This is not home.
Yeah.
This
You're not
is
in
not
Kansas
home.
anymore.
It's
Yeah,
hard.
and I told my wife, I said, regardless if we go through and we go into this, and God blesses us, and we move forward, and we're able to do this and to help the people and to make a difference and go represent people in Austin. I said, this is never going to be home.
And
So-
it's just as well as UT now. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
Yes, I liked your answer on what's your position on property taxes. Can they be realistically eliminated, and if so, how? And then I'll let you answer, and then I want a quick follow-up when you're done.
Okay, so can they be eliminated
Oh, I'll just-
realistically, and how?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yes, they can. But in a state as big as ours, none of the problems that we have are going to be simple. Is it realistic? Yes, it could absolutely happen. But is it going to happen without fighting lions and tigers and bears in the front yard of the Capitol? Absolutely not. It's going to take a lot of blood, a lot of sweat, and a lot of tears to make that happen. And at the same time, there may be other things that we can do, because realistically, we have to replace that money from something somewhere. I don't know that we could survive and not have anything for a budget. And especially at the local level, local governments operate heavily off of property taxes. That's what most of the things come from to operate. So we would have to work on. I don't have a specific plan to say this is exactly what needs to happen. I have not done that, but I am happy to sit down and listen to people that know more about taxes than I do on the other side of things, and to have realistic discussions about what would be best. There are lots of ideas that are out there. I don't know which ones are the worst or the best, but I'm happy to sit down and have that discussion about what's best for Texans.
Yeah. Well, and the reason I had a follow up in there is because when I started to take a deep dive into it, I realized there's a lot of white papers out there, a lot of policy papers. Huffines Liberty Foundation has done some good ones. There's many people that are a lot smarter than I have that have tackled this problem, and they do have some realistic ideas. And Florida's making progress there.
Yes.
So there's some people we
Yes.
can learn from. We don't have to,
We
my
don't have to
daddy
start from
always said,
scratch.
don't make all the mistakes yourself. Learn
That's
from
right.
everybody else's, and
That's
you'll
right.
be a lot wiser when
I
you
like
finish.
that.
So,
Absolutely.
but thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So one of the questions was, will you submit a bill eliminating the ability of a member of the Texas legislature to change their vote after the official vote is recorded? And you said no. Did you know this is an ongoing thing where that um, legislators will vote, and then after the vote's taken and it passes or it doesn't pass, depending on which way they want to look at it, that they'll go and change their vote so that their vote will look like their vote will make them look better when they do when the conservative groups or groups in general rank them for their votes. Did you know that was a thing?
I absolutely did not know that.
Okay.
I had never heard that before. This is, we all know what assuming does. And this is my fault for assuming that when you put your name on something and you cast it, you raise your hand, say, I vote for this, or no, I don't vote for that was it. You made your vote. I didn't know you did it in pencil and you could go back and change it.
You want to be a Texas senator, and you really think that all of those legislators are telling the truth and they're going to abide by their their word?
There may be some wishful thinking and hoping that that's the case, but but honestly, I had never known that that was the case. I thought that you cast a vote, and this is your vote, and you voted your conscience and the way the people that sent you there wanted you to vote, and that's my mistake for assuming that anybody would vote and stand by what they thought or what they felt,
Well,
right or wrong.
we all expect that as taxpayers when we put people into office, but it's
Yes,
not. We don't always get what we expect.
right, but we should expect that.
Yes.
That's the thing, is that we should absolutely expect for them to not be moved by the waves every time the wind blows, right? If we send them and we're reaching out to our representative and we say, hey, this is a problem for us, we want you to go die on this hill, then that person should go die on that hill. Unless there is a moral objection, then I can't see why you wouldn't.
Well, and in your defense, if I put that question into AI right now, it says, no, you can't do that. But we all know because we have
Right.
personal firsthand testimonies from representatives who have told us they saw it happen.
And I don't understand it.
So my question, yeah. So my question is, are you aware, or what's your stance on closing the primaries in Texas? Do you have a thought about closing the primaries?
I I'm not. So we want you to only vote for your people in your party.
Correct.
Right. And not allow anybody else to come in from another party to influence that.
Correct.
Um, this is something that is very sensitive for, oddly sensitive for a lot of people on, and there's a wide spectrum of it. You could ask probably a dozen people and get at least a half a dozen different answers on it, just to random people. But for me, so when we look at I like to think about history a little bit, and other than just the right now. So I look in the past, and so primaries are very partisan, anyways. Um, if I were to err on the side of caution, they should probably be based on what the party wants if it's going to be the party selection. As far as in general voting in in history, if we look back at just presidential elections, not all are done on an individual party basis. You have other people coming in. When this person's a good candidate, you have other people that go and want to support that candidate, regardless of the letter that's next to their name. Of course, I'd like to have my cake and eat it too. If we have a really good candidate that's running for a position, I want all the help we can get for that person. I don't care who comes and says yes. But at the same time, we must be cautious. We must be prudent that the person that's chosen for a party representation isn't overly influenced by people outside of the party.
Okay. Are you aware that there is a pending lawsuit between the state party and the Secretary of State's office on that issue?
I was not aware that there was a lawsuit previously. No.
By the way, that is a plank in the Republican Party platform to close primary. Now, that was voted on by 8,000 delegates. It's the largest political convention in the world.
Wow.
80% passage.
And another side note on that is the Secretary of State office asked the Attorney General's office to represent them, which they typically do in state um, in these cases. But the Attorney General office has decided not to support the Secretary of State's office, and they've had to hire outside counsel to represent them and spend even more money.
Tax money.
Yeah, more tax money. Correct.
Yeah.
Sorry, Larry.
Our money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Help me recall, especially for the people that will be watching this. Back, I don't remember, a couple of years ago, when all the tow truck companies were having problems. You've had them for a long time, but you were not getting anywhere. And if I'm memory's correct, I was at a commissioner's court meeting when you all presented some of the problems that was going on.
Mhm.
Help me and help the people that will be watching this understand what was happening and how you got that resolved.
So, are you referring to? I just want to make sure that we're talking about the same thing. Are you referring to about 5 or 6 years ago? We got the Commissioners Court passed an ordinance for Montgomery County to start a rotation system. Is that what you're talking about?
Yep.
Okay. So previously, there were some locals. We are so close to Harris County that a lot of things are heavily influenced by Harris County, the way that things work. So we are a very large county, a very populous county. Not quite Harris County, but still not the smallest by any stretch, right? And it was identified through some officials that tow trucks were a problem. And through commissioners' court, things were pushed and passed at a state level and a local level to where Montgomery County could adopt what a handful of people wanted, which was a tow rotation. And the rules were very murky and muddy, and it caused a system that be as polite as I can when I answer this question. So myself, I am not against a tow rotation. But what I am against is when the rotation doesn't follow the state laws that govern it. So what we got early on was just a bit of a mess in a blender, right? Just throw a whole bunch of stuff in, and we'll work out the details as we go. And I'm going to run over on time on this one. Even I'm trying not to put too much into it. We got handed something that was that made things worse instead of making things better. We tried to work with the sheriff department administration and the county. We'll just call it the county because it wasn't just the sheriff department. We tried to work with the county. Some of us owners were a little more vocal than others. Some of us did it the right way. Some of us did it the wrong way, in my opinion, to try to help fix and correct the problem. Early on, I asked for us to be able to have an advisory board. I asked for that at Commissioner's Court so that tow industry owners and operators would have a voice in how we went about fixing this. Because at that, just like in any other rule, we were the people that were going to have to live with however this was administered. We were the ones that were going to have to abide by these rules and regulations. And it started off as a mess, and then things got to a point that after we got the advisory board, that we were just ignored. And until last week, since about the second or third month, we made, I think, 2 changes early on in the rotation system. We went from the county having 24 individual rotation zones to 4, which helped out a lot. And then we made one other change. The county made one other change after that in regards to pricing and fees. And then the county has just refused to do anything since then until last Tuesday. Some minor things were passed that will affect a lot of people. Um, it was a very difficult thing to try to go through. I was asked by some elected officials to write a policy to help with things and make things better. And there was talk about changing back to kind of the way that we did things before the rotation. I did that, didn't go over so good with some other officials, but I did what I was asked to do. I was asked to serve in that capacity, and I did it. Lots of people liked the idea. The powers that be beyond the person that asked me to do it did not, and it didn't go anywhere. It was the for whatever reason, towing is always is probably always will be something that's very touchy for people because we deal with people. A lot of people, the most expensive thing they'll ever own is a vehicle. A lot of people, and we deal with those individuals at their worst. Their family members hurt. They got in a wreck. They were hurt in a wreck. They lost their car because they got in trouble, and we are the ones that wind up with it. Now, if it wasn't us, it would be the county or the state or the city that owned the storage lots and the tow trucks that had that. But it has been a very, very much of an uphill battle trying to help make things better. And it's like trying to climb the flat side of the dam instead of going over it from the water side. It has been extremely difficult, um, even prior to the previous sheriff's administration. It was considerably worse because we were dealt with um, the right way to say this. We were just met with very much disdain in regards to the towing industry, and we do a lot of things. We're a big part of the small business in the county, and we should have rules. We should follow those rules. We should obey those rules, but we should also be able to understand what they are. Just like with everything else, we should be able to look at them, say, okay, I meet these requirements, I don't meet these requirements, so I can join this list and do these things. And that list is governed by what the way the state says to do it. And it just hasn't been that way across the board since the inception of the rotation. And there's so much information there. It's very difficult to answer that in a couple of minutes, and I apologize.
The point is that you have had experience in helping make policies and do that
Absolutely.
thing. And you have certainly been on a controversial side, whichever side that was. So that kind of prepares you for what you might get involved in at the Senate.
I agree. I wrote policy from scratch, and went and found textbook definitions that made sense to the industry. Things that when you read the definition, a normal everyday person in the business could look at it and say, okay, I can understand that, and I can do that, instead of it just being something that's impossible to understand and follow. I put this together. I made it much more simple. The policy that we had, I think it was almost 15,000 words. The rotation system when it was passed by the county. The system that I wrote was fair and equal for everyone. It was supported by over a dozen other tow companies locally, and it was something that I cut it down to about 4 to 5,000 words. So, and that includes definitions, that includes, it says page 1 at the bottom. That's all the words on a Word document. That was everything. So I cut it down to a third, and it was easier to read, easier to understand, easier to follow. And I have shopped that around. I have worked with other people to try to get a sensitive issue passed. This is something that I can do at the state level.
All right. So one of our questions was, what did you think of the faction led by Dave Phelan to try to oust Attorney General Ken Paxton? I don't know if you followed that real closely, but you had the some members of the House prosecuting the sitting attorney general, to which the Senate became the jury in the trial. There were 30 accusations presented. So when we asked you about that, you had indicated that I believe that when our party works together, we are stronger. I never like to see fighting within the party. It prevents us from being able to do the business of the people. That's correct. But would you agree that there's a lot of swamp out there, deep state, not just at the federal level, but the state level, and certainly you've seen it here
Yeah,
at the current level.
County.
Yeah, so
County level.
there is absolutely levels of, as you say, swamp, or I guess there's all kinds of definitions that fit in that, I guess. But yes, there are those people that fit those categories at every level of government. And I don't know if it's worse on one end of the spectrum or the other, be it the smallest localist board closest to us or the highest end of it in Washington. I'm not sure which is worse, because on the end closest to us, it's hard because those are our neighbors. Those are our fellow citizens that we see in town every day. Whereas Washington is standoff, but it's on a whole different level. And there's a wide spectrum there of how good or bad things could be across the board. But yes, there are um, problems with that type of thing across the board, local, state, and federal.
Yeah, and that's something you may have to deal with because it appears to be a potential problem, lingering problem, because we still have the same kind of people in office, both in the House, primarily in the House. Fortunately, we have some conservatives in the Senate, but you still have to deal with it. So you can't really say, "Kumbaya, Rodney King, can we just all get along?" Because it don't work even at our local party level.
Right.
We've got different factions here.
Yeah.
We've been to court, with the other faction when they sued 18 of our precinct chairs.
Yeah.
So
we
You may have to deal with
Yeah, we-
issues like that. It's more than just, the towing company
I understand.
situation.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay, all right. Luis?
So my question is related a little bit to John's lawfare. I don't know if you're real familiar with that. But essentially, that's a tool.
Repeat.
Okay. My question ties into John's a little bit, but it's more framed around lawfare in general in Texas. So we know it's happening generally. What would you do as senator to help with legislation or to just address lawfare in Texas, because it does happen. We need to be, it just needs to be blind, okay, completely. And sometimes it isn't. And so good people are getting hammered or financially hammered, and really it's around the other side knows, well, we can just try and help it forward and let them spend all their money, kind of thing. So
Been there.
I'll let you-
I've been there. I
Okay.
understand it. I've been on the receiving end of a lawsuit that because somebody said that they thought that I said mean things about them, and that I guess that competition in business is not okay just because I existed. Um, using lawsuits to get what you want is, there are times that the court system needs to be brought in to fix a serious problem. And there are times that the court system is used um, to settle petty differences that it probably shouldn't be involved in because somebody, in my case, somebody said I said mean things about them. There was never any substance to anything. I went to hire a lawyer and they said, "Is this real?" That was what the lawyer actually asked. "Is this for real? This is not a joke. No, this is for real. This is somebody that wants money out of my pocket and to silence me because they think I said something." It was silly. In my case, it was absolutely preposterous, and it was completely somebody else's doing. It had nothing to do with me. But videos were made. It had my face on the video because it was stock footage from another place. There was a news agency that had footage of us out working, and when this other person made videos, yours truly was the first face you see. So it's kind of like when the animal's born, the first face it sees, oh, that's mom, right? That's how I got stuck with it. Oh, that's Charlie. He's the one. It's his fault. Get the pitchforks, get the torches. Let's go after him. And it's very unfortunate when those circumstances happen because it doesn't have to be that way. There's a time and there's a place.
But how do we fix it? Do you have any idea?
Oh goodness. And like in that particular circumstances, you got to be careful not to impede on, say, somebody says something publicly that, let's say I believe in a particular issue and a lot of people don't like that for whatever reason. Well, I have the right to feel that way. And that's my First Amendment right to discuss that openly, so long as I'm not calling to hurt people or to cause harm to anyone or a group of people or singling people out by their race or their religion or anything along that, right? So as long as what someone is doing or saying is within the bounds of the Constitution, you have to let them say their piece. Now, as far as, should there be, I guess, like a litmus test when it comes to lawfare using litigation to fight amongst ourselves? I don't know how to fix that. I don't. I don't know I know the side of it, the end of it that I was on, the receiving end of it, but I don't know. I don't know. Sitting here in this room today, I don't have the answer to say that this is the process that should be put in place. There are legal minds that are far greater than mine that probably need to have that conversation on the proper way to ensure people's rights and at the same time handle the business at hand. I hope I answered that for you. That's a hard one.
Yeah, I mean, it could almost be termed frivolous lawsuits, you know.
Yes, frivolous
And-
lawsuits
and I
are a
think there are-
huge problem.
Yeah, so I think there really needs to be some fix to that, and I just then
Suing people for the sake of suing people is wrong.
suing people to bankrupt people.
Yes, just because you don't like someone. That's what I went through.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we went through too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was one of the ones sued.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Somebody just decided they didn't like me, that we used to be friends,
Right. Yeah.
and that here come that 7-figure lawsuit.
Understood. Yeah. Well, and in the same sense, Paxton's lawsuit, he was practically bankrupt as a result of
Right.
30 charges that
Right.
they threw against the wall. Nothing stuck,
Yeah.
but he still had to spend all that money to defend himself.
Right,
even
and
though it
that's
didn't,
and
you
if
know.
I can interject a little bit right there. So part of the problem that we do face with when it comes to like I'm going to use my industry in particular as an example again.
Mhm.
So we fall under the umbrella agency of the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulations, and anybody can go make a complaint about a tow company, a vehicle storage facility, so a storage lot where the cars go, or a tow operator. You could drive down the road that day, see this person, and be like, you know what? I don't like the design on the side of that truck. I'm going to go make a complaint, and let's go see what we can do. And it kind of goes into what you were asking a second ago. And under this agency, if that complaint is made against me, Charlie Miller, I am guilty until proven innocent. I must, in accordance to this agency, this state agency, I must prove that I did not do these things. Regardless of what it is or who claimed it, I have to prove that it didn't happen. Because the state comes to us, because if you're in the business any amount of time and you deal with people, you're gonna get a complaint. A tow company's gonna get a complaint. It's gonna happen. Like I said, we deal with people at some of their worst times, and you can't make everybody happy all the time. It's absolutely impossible. And I've had to defend myself over things that had absolutely nothing to do with us and were absolutely preposterous, that completely didn't happen, and that are outright lies. But instead of the burden being on the accuser, the burden is on the accused. And that's not right. That's absolutely fundamentally wrong in this country.
I do have a question. I didn't get to do a question.
I'm sorry,
No,
I
that's
jumped
okay.
in
That's
the
good.
middle of it.
Yeah, no, I probably should have just stayed on topic. So my question is about recall elections.
Uh-huh.
Now, in the 24 legislature, Brian Harrison in the Texas House proposed a House Bill 1267 to hold our federal senators accountable for what they've done. Like, we don't have a process right now in Texas. The only ability we have to recall is for local officials who are under home rule charter, which is about 90% of our towns are under home rule charter. But we have no process whatsoever for anyone at the state level to say, hey, dude, if you're not going to do your job right, then the voters are going to call you back home. And we probably ought to, if we really want accountability in our federal government. That's part of the argument that drives the closed primaries. When 80% of the Republican Party says we want a closed primary, there's something wrong. They realize there's influence happening that shouldn't be happening. They ought to be able to have the right to call those people home if they don't do what we ask them to do when they go to Austin. If we had that right, maybe we wouldn't be having the argument about closed primaries, right? So would you consider legislation and pushing legislation to make the people who are in Austin accountable to the voters? It would take a constitutional amendment at this point. We've tried it once before, but it's desperately needed if we say we really want accountability to be part of our government. Because when in Montgomery County, 80% of our people elect Republicans to go up and do something, because we're heavily red. We're the reddest county. And so if our representatives go up there and they don't do red things, shouldn't we have a way to call them home, a process for that?
Yeah, so just for clarification, in calling them home, we mean not to call them home and have a meeting. We're talking about remove them from
At the
office.
point, you would have many meetings by the time
Right.
a recall
Okay,
right?
I just want to
Pay
make
a
sure.
reasonable
Yeah,
person would,
yes.
yeah, so there'll be plenty of chances to let them know we're not happy,
Right.
but when they still say, well, that's okay, I'm gonna do what I want, then we ought to have some teeth to do something. Would you agree?
I would. It is a responsibility of the elected representative because of the type of government we have a representative form of government. I don't care again what level it's on, the closest level at home, the smallest elected board, all the way to the president of the United States or whoever, or judges that are appointed. That's a rough one. Lifetime appointments are hard. But regardless of the spectrum that representative falls on, that representative needs to be accountable to their decisions. And back to the question, about changing your vote afterwards. That's you trying to skate around getting and change your mind for opinion. Yeah, you're trying to carry the one, fix the problem that whatever. It we should be an elected official should absolutely be accountable to the people that put them there.
So this is an accountability item as well. There's a lot of appointments to positions made by the governor, like the Secretary of State and our local San Jacinto River Authority. But they have no accountability to the people. Would you be willing to author a bill that would make those types of positions elected positions?
So you're talking um,
Any appointed position that carries weight, that has taxing authority, that our taxes are changed, and there's no representation
okay.
other than the governor, and these people are not accountable to us on the decisions they make.
Okay, so my opinion on that is that whenever there are going to be positions that are need to be appointed by the person that we have elected to run to take care of business, be it the governor or the president, whatever those are. If those positions have a taxing ability, we should probably have a little bit more say so in who that person is.
So you would be willing to carry that?
I would be willing to support that.
Okay, thank you.
So, just a question for you. I've got several that will lead after. So, first question is from do we have a spending problem in the state of Texas, or do we have a revenue problem? What what have we got here?
Well, we have a very large surplus right now.
You know how much it is?
I think it was 12 billion, 12 somewhere. I apologize. I looked at a lot of numbers lately. I was doing some research on the franchise tax. That's and but I think the last budget. I think it was 12 million, if I'm not mistaken. Somewhere, I'm 12 billion. I'm sorry. It's in the billions, and of course, it's a big state. Takes a lot of money.
About 24 billion.
24 billion. Okay,
Okay.
24 billion. And
So, to back to the question, so it's spending or revenue? Are you? I guess maybe you're getting there. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
um, well, I think government always spends too much money.
Well, so then the follow on, right, is you said in one of your responses, and I'm going to apply it to spending also, that the county is an extension of counties are extensions of the state government, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So back to that, you're going to be representing Montgomery County. Do we have a spending problem in Montgomery County or a revenue problem?
I will default this to say that all government has a spending problem.
Okay. And then my last question is, one of the people that's running for comptroller for the state of Texas wants to doge his department and then doge every state agency, every department in the state of Texas. Is that something you'd support
So
in his effort?
to root out corruption and overspending, wasteful spending, for $500 toilet seats and $300 pliers or whatever it is.
Have some accountability.
Yeah, I would support finding an, if I don't want to, I would not be in support of saying just turn somebody loose with pitchforks and torches and just scorched earth everybody and everything out there. But I would say that if there is a push um, to make sure that we're spending the taxpayers' dollars appropriately, absolutely. If we are wasting money on something, then we need to fix that. If there are programs um, that are programs that have been around for years and years, there's an office somewhere that's collecting dust, but for some reason they still are on have a line item on the budget. Why? What's the point of that? Why is this happening? Then we need to eliminate those wasteful, unneeded things.
Oh. I'm gonna kick it over to you, Lois.
Um, I had a question and it just slipped my mind for a second, but we were talking about the swamp a lot. So we have, and we talked about that earlier. Is there a way to get rid? How do you? It's cost cutting. It's people not doing their job. It's a whole bunch of stuff, right? We need programs to do that. Would you support? And Doge is good, but we really need to streamline a lot of the government, and we need to find waste, fraud, and abuse. So I think we really almost need a formal program for that. It's not going to happen voluntarily. So would you support that?
To streamline,
A formal program, whether it be a bill or a law that says government has to live within some means of itself. It's a lot like term limits, you would say.
yeah. So I will answer that with this. I will say that I am a small government, low tax conservative. Okay. That describes me better than just blanket as a Republican. I think that anytime we give government power, regardless of whether it's conservative or liberal, government likes power. Government feeds on power. Government feeds off of money and growing and consuming more things. And we must be cautious in that because we could, whether it's a conservative government or liberal government, we could find ourselves in a position that we overstep our bounds and wind up with a bloated bureaucracy that just doesn't make any sense, and it winds up feeding itself and the things that are around it versus its original um, design to provide for the people that are funding it, the taxpayers.
But to me, the only way it gets fixed to me is like a cap every year on your budget. You have to do, and you have to do a program where it's a law. It's not. It always be nice to do. Now, if there are emergencies, I get that. But for government just to say, oh, this year we want 10, maybe next year we want 15, and it just keeps going like this with no restrictions at all. We really need a law that dictates what they can do every year.
Yeah, so maybe something along the lines that matches a little bit closer to inflation and to real life things that are going on, versus having open-ended spending. There could be criteria put in place, and that could be a very good constructive conversation to have of anything we pass must meet certain criteria to stay within budget bounds. I don't have a problem with that at all.
One of your goals, you said you want to ensure our children are greatest treasure are provided with a meaningful education that gives them marketable skills. What is Texas ranked right now as far as education?
I don't know the exact position. Um, I think it should probably be a lot higher than it is. I don't. I know we've had some talks lately about some of the more the local areas in the district versus the state overall. Some math scores are only about 50, 54%. In certain parts of the district and other parts of the district, they're down in the 40s on math and reading. Um, it's unfortunate that that's the case. We School is a little bit like government, in my opinion, Charlie's opinion, and we have to be sure that the basics are taken care of first and foremost. And we need to make sure that those kids can read, write, do math, and then the extras come after that. So just like with government spending, we got to take care of the basics, and then the extra stuff, there may be a second tier to those things. But also, we need to, part of that is we need to make sure that we are producing young people out of school. I say producing, I may not be the right word, but that kids are coming out of school that are able to go into society and be a self-sustained person in society. They need to.
Should we be putting more money into it? I mean, we got a $24 million surplus.
So I think that we should put more money into, so that as far as the basics go, we need to hold those school districts accountable. And you've seen a lot of that in the state, like Beaumont ISD is getting taken over right now, I believe, by the state. We've seen one or two in Houston area that have also had this problem as well. And that that process, I don't know how streamlined that particular process is, but if those schools aren't doing it and the locals are not holding those elected school board members accountable for their kids that are there and make sure they learn that, then that's a problem that needs to be fixed. Beyond that, I think that the money that we need to make sure the money is spent wisely for those school districts with their budgets they currently have. Spend the money to make sure the kids are learning, whether it's teachers or equipment. Don't waste the money. The second part of that is for high school kids. We need to make sure that college is not for everybody. There was a huge push when I graduated in '96 from New Caney ISD. There was a huge push that was military or college, pick one. Which one are you going to do? Well, we couldn't afford college, 4-year university, so I went to the military and I learned a trade there. And there are positions that we need to focus on. So there were some things that were passed this year, this last session, to help with that, but I don't think it went far enough. We need to make sure that we have plumbers, electricians, welders, uh, young people that learn CAD programs while they're in school. These are things that you don't have to have a 4-year college degree, and you could come out and you could support yourself and a young family relatively comfortably as a young person still learning. You could be in society and take care of business and be able to pay bills with these basics right out of high school. Whereas today we see a lot of kids come out of high school that are below the limits in reading and math. Well, how in the world did they graduate? There's a failure somewhere there, and it's not always about throwing more money at it. Sometimes it's about accountability, sometimes it's about the rules that are in place that limit the way things are implemented within an organization or school district that are hampering their kids' abilities to learn for whatever reason.
Okay, we're at that point now. If you want to take up to 5 minutes for closing, and then we'll wrap it up.
All right. I'm very grateful to be here today. Thank every one of you. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you. Thank you for taking your time out of a Saturday. I appreciate that a lot. Um, I will reiterate that I am a small business owner and veteran that wants to see common sense rules that everybody can read, understand, and follow. Therefore, making those things easy to enforce on the end that needs enforcement for rules, whether it's um, whether it's police enforcement for following those kinds of rules, or if it's something as simple as your property taxes. It needs to be simple, easy to read, easy to understand, and easy to follow. I want to streamline things. I want to make things simple for normal, everyday people to be able to live a comfortable life and that Texans do better. I think that we tend to get too many things in the weeds. I like to think that I try to keep it simple. You know, the KISS method, keep it simple. Make it simple across the board. As an example, our company, I prefer to have fewer trucks that have more capabilities versus a lot of trucks that are specialized in certain things, therefore making those as profitable as possible. I think that we can apply some of those things to keep it simple on the rules and regulations that govern us at a state level and therefore influencing those rules and regulations at a local level to save us some money across the board and make rules that are easy to follow here at home every single day. Because if our businesses can't follow the rules that are placed in front of them, those businesses either go away, they go broke, or they go somewhere else. And that's not what we need. We need the mom and pop businesses here to support us because those are the ones that support the churches, the schools, and they're the hiring the people that bring in every single day. We need to do as much as we can to make life easier and more simple for legitimate rule following businesses and Texans here.
All righty, great. Thank you
You have our
for,
website?
website.
CharlieForTexas.com. CharlieForTexas.com. Thank you so much. I said I was going to forget that. I always
Perfect.
do.
Well, thank you for coming in.
Yes.
Thank you for your service. And we appreciate you coming in on a Saturday also. Good luck in your campaign.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.